We are live, Martin.
All right. Brilliant.
I am so excited to be here with you today. Thank you for joining me.
You are very welcome. The privilege is mine. Thank you for inviting me back for a start. Right? I must have done something right last time to be invited back. In all seriousness, Jill, it's like coming home. It's like family, right? You've created such a beautiful, safe space to have conversations. And we've kind of built our coaching businesses sort of parallel at the same sort of times. We came across each other, and then a lot of people in your community who are going to be watching, we've done the same, and we've joined other groups, and we've seen each other's success and progress and checking different things out. It's such a beautiful community. So it really does feel like family. I know that some people say, I don't know who the heck you are, Martin, but you'll get to know me. But for all of us, it's like, we've been on this journey together, and it's beautiful to see how we've been doing it in different ways, that we've learned different things.
Yes.
We're all heart-centered. I know that's overused, but we really genuinely care about other people and making a difference. Well, that's life, right? So
we've got Nancy watching, and DJ says good morning from Syracuse, New York.
New York, excellent.
New York State.
New York State. I don't know. New York State.
Yeah, we have to get that right though, don't we? Because New York City, New York State.
Don't want to offend people. Yeah, I know. No, welcome. Brilliant. It's great to have everybody here. I know people will be joining us throughout, and replays and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. So this is going to be great, and I wanted to ask you about, if you could share a bit about what happened with your car crash. Ooh. And what new insights did that bring in for you?
It's a good place to start. It's a good place to start. We're going to reverse engineer this, I think.
Okay.
Because you're right. So what is it now? 8 weeks ago, I was involved in a car crash. And basically, if one thing had been different, if they'd hit me slightly differently, chances are I wouldn't be here. So I always say, I've said I've died once and come back. I've been taking my last 2 breaths on my living room floor twice. I decided to end it all, and now I've survived 2 car crashes. I'm on my 7th chance of life. I'm actually wondering whether I'm a cat. Right? I don't know if I got 9 lives or what, but it's been a heck of a journey. And this last jolt was the car crash 8 weeks ago. And a lot came out of that. Life lessons and meaning has been something that I've searched for throughout my life. And we'll probably come on to that as to where that started.
Yeah.
But it really brought it into sharp focus 8 weeks ago. And, I don't need to describe the accident, but somebody hit me from behind, and they turned me around, thankfully, towards the corner, but they knocked me 20 meters up the road at a roundabout junction where there was another car coming the other way. They've totaled the car, and it was not a great experience.
Yeah.
But it makes you stop. It makes everything stop. And the first thing is obviously, well, I'm grateful to be alive, because it was a heck of a smash. I'm grateful that everybody walked away from the accident.
Yeah.
That's the foremost and most important thing. And then I automatically go to meaning and the lesson from it. Like literally, I've just had this accident, and I'm sat there, the seat's all inclined, because it's been tilted back and forward, the whole seat's collapsed. I'm there like a dentist chair, right? Pain going through the body, wondering what on earth. And I'm just looking at the sky going, okay, that was a little overly dramatic, but what's the lesson? What are you trying to teach me? What do I need to listen to?
Yeah.
It's literally my first thing, which some people are going to be, that's a bit weird, Martin. But it is literally the first thing I go to. Right, okay, what does this mean? What are you trying to tell me, universe? And I literally look up and ask the universe.
Mm.
And I think maybe it's a good point to put into perspective what we mean by this whole meaning thing, because I think we can search for the meaning of life and
Yeah.
what's our life purpose and all that. It's kind of a big question. I think we all ask ourselves at some point. And some people go on that search for their whole lives. And
Yeah.
the evolution of my understanding of this was that I used to, because of other things that happened in my life, I used to think that it was this one thing, this one meaning, this one purpose, you
Yeah.
know, that I had to find out. But what I've discovered was it's actually more about bringing meaning into the experiences that we have.
Yeah.
It's not about some ideal, like you're here for this one reason. Because what happens when that one reason is fulfilled? What happens afterwards?
Yeah. You're lost then.
Yeah, exactly. If you've tied all your identity up to finding the meaning, then you find it. Well, what happens? You know,
Yeah.
you lose yourself. But what I found is it is about looking for the meaning and the lessons that it teaches us in all the experiences we have. And that's good, bad, and ugly situations.
Yeah.
Here I am in this car, and I'm looking for the meaning. Now, it's a habit of asking the right questions, because very often, if something bad happens to us, if we want to call it bad, if something happens unexpected, right? Life happens to us. I get hit by a car that I was not expected. It's a case of trying to make sense of that, because it's happened to you, but you could easily then go into, why me? Why is this happening?
Oh, yeah.
This is my second accident. This is the 7th chance of life. What are you trying to knock me off? Are you know, I've got all these other things going on. It was on Easter Sunday. It's like, what are you doing? My son's at a performance. My family's waiting for me. It's like, why? What this? Haven't I been through enough? You could easily go through all the whys. And I think a lot of people, we do. And at times we do. And it's okay. It's just trying not to stay there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about asking slightly different questions. So instead of just going, oh, when am I going to catch a break? Why is this happening to me now? What on earth? You know, why is the universe picking on me? It's more about just sitting back and going, okay, there must be some lesson here. There must be something that's happening. And you get different answers. If you ask, as a coach, you know, if you ask better quality questions, you get better quality answers.
Yeah.
And why not? For me, this is what I've just settled on over the years. Come into this, just ask the universe, okay, what's the lesson? It's like, this is a bit dramatic. You could have got my attention in a different way, right? But it became very clear. And there was a very funny first. This is how my brain works. Okay, so there we are, and I do get out the car and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to talk to the insurance company and all that kind of stuff, because we've had an accident. The police are there and trying to sort everything out. And the insurance company, I'm not going to name names, but it's a bit of debacle. But they kept me on the phone for an hour and a quarter. So there I am. I've just had this totaled accident. I'm on the side of a junction going into the motorway, and they're keeping me on the phone for an hour and a quarter, asking me 101 different questions. And in that moment, it was the case of not meeting me where I was at as to what I need. I needed somebody to come and collect the car and make sure I got home and that I was well. That's all I needed. I don't need the whole insurance debacle, just sort that out afterwards. And the first life lesson that literally I'm on the side of the motorway and I'm going, meet people where they're at. I don't care what your systems, your processes are. I don't care what that is. If somebody is in pain, struggling, in need, you give them what they need and what they want in that moment. And as coaches, we know this, but it was just a start business lesson there. It was like, well, Martin, you do quite a lot of online stuff, and just make sure you're meeting people where they're at, because if they come to you and then you've got this little thing here where they've got to answer a few questions, it might just be a barrier to them actually getting the support that they need.
That's true, Martin.
Right? It's just how my brain is wired.
What looks like a process to make things go smoothly, can they be a barrier? It's such an important question, isn't it?
It is. And 8 weeks later, from an insurance point of view, we are still battling, we are still fighting, we are still going through their system and process, which is appalling. So it's, again, people that are in need, and a lot of us are coaches here. It's like, let's help people where they're at. There I am, sat, I mean, just had an accident, and this is the life lesson that comes to me. So I was like, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. But universe, I have not just gone through a car accident. I'm in pain. The car's totaled. I'm not going through all of this just for a business lesson on systems and processes.
No.
Right? I'm going to take that lesson, but it's not the only lesson, right? There's got to be something else. And obviously, the very first thing is just grateful that you're alive. That's always my default. And in the morning, air in my lungs, blood in my veins, got a beautiful family, sun is shining. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Because as long as we're alive, we can do something. We can change things. We can ask different questions. We can make different choices. We can live a better life. We can do better, be better. But if we're not around, then we can't do that. So that's always got to be the default of gratitude and your default of meaning. It's like, well, okay, well, I'm here. Now I've just learned systems and processes lesson. What? That's ridiculous. Here's what's interesting that happened, because then I'm searching, I'm going, what's the deeper meaning in this? What on earth is going on? And I've got a community called the Extraordinary Life Community, as you know. And we've got loads of trainings in there. And every Thursday I share a training from the archives. I've got like over 70 hours of training. I share them so that they don't just sit on the shelf. And I schedule these in advance, 3 months in advance. So it's always a nice surprise to me as to which one I've scheduled. Here's what happened that week of the accident. So we're sorting out the car and my injuries and all manner of things. The training that I schedule gets put up in the group, in the community. And it's one that I did on pain is real, suffering is a choice. And this comes from one of my mentors, Tony Robbins. He introduced me to that concept, but it's also from Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, who, all manner of just inhumane things happened to that man. And yet he remained intact in his soul, in his mind. It was the last thing they were ever going to take from him. They took everything else from his family. And it was a case of the pain of that is real, but I'm not going to suffer. I'm going to help people. So he helped all these other people in the camps that are just, it's a traumatic, but just an inspiring tale. But it's where this kind of pain is real, suffering is a choice. I'm like, are you kidding me? A few days ago, I was in this car crash, and you're now telling me pain is real, suffering is a choice. But it kind of fits the bill, because I tell you now, pain is very real because I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And then it just got me thinking, but I'm going to refuse to suffer. I'm not going to let this define me. And I'm in pain. And there's all mental and physical stuff going on, and the car and the family. But I'm not going to suffer.
Mm.
What reinforced this? Because you're like, well, that is a little bit of coincidence. And people will say this is a coincidence. Now, I'll come on to why that doesn't really matter. The following day, so that was on the Thursday. On the Friday, get this. On the Friday, Tony, who has a gazillion posts that he's posting all the time, he posts one line, literally one line, no image, right? And the words were, pain is real, suffering is a choice. You what? Okay, I'll take it, universe. Okay, I'll take it. That's the big message.
That was definitely your message, wasn't it?
And how I interpret it.
Jo was with us. She said, "There's an art to learning to suffer well."
Oh, an art to learning how to suffer well.
Yeah. So resources are pulled from it.
Yes. Yeah, I like that, because by suffering well, you're lessening the suffering.
Yes.
That's the whole point of that. You're learning stuff, and that's a different way of looking at it in terms of how I'm explaining it. But it's brilliant, because we can still be in pain, but we need to try to do something to help ourselves. And sometimes that's something that we can do ourselves, and sometimes it means reaching out. And so thank you for that, Joe. That's a really good insight. So there I am. Okay, I'll take that as the message. Brilliant. And the really interesting thing was there were a few things in my life before the accident that weren't quite where I wanted them to be. I'd been pushing a little hard and trying to
Right.
make a few things work, and and it just wasn't quite working out, and I was frustrated. Nothing to do with the accident, but I suddenly, with that message, I then could see that I was suffering. There were a couple of areas, and I'm blessed with family and all the people that I
Yeah.
support and all that kind of stuff. But there were a couple of areas, and it suddenly dawned on me that, Martin, the pain of that not working was very real, but you're choosing to suffer because you're doing exactly what you say not to do, which is do the same darn things over and over again, expecting a different result. This is something you teach, you mentor, you coach, but sometimes we're too close to these things, right?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
really wanting to work, and it suddenly came clear that there were things in my life where pain is real, but suffering was a choice, was happening over there, but I hadn't quite picked it up. And the accident happens, which means then I've got the physical pain, and then I've got the message, bring it all together, and then I suddenly realized why the universe needed me to feel a bit of physical pain, because otherwise I wasn't going to stop. I'd have just carried on, and actually the things that were causing me that suffering, they were starting to cause me stress. I'm somebody that helps people with their stress and their anxiety and all that kind of stuff. This is my journey, what I do. And yet these things were starting to creep in. And I know full well, if you let those things carry on, it can escalate very quickly. So here I am with this message going, wow, that is profound. Martin, you need to stop. You need to stop and just reflect. And now you're realizing that your health is, and I always know my health is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But maybe I wasn't quite putting it in that category because I was focusing on a few other things. It's like, now that I couldn't actually walk 100 yards, now that I didn't have the mobility that I had, now that I couldn't go skateboarding or climbing or even walk my son to school and back, all of a sudden I realized just how valuable having my health was, because I was restricted in a way that actually I've never been restricted in that way before. I've had injuries and stuff before, but not to that extent.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, health, reassess the health, reassess what on earth I was doing over there that was causing me the suffering, and just make sure that I've got the right priority and that I'm living in the way that I want to. This all came out of.
Do you know what really struck me when you said that, Martin?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting, and the blessing in it, that the restriction came from a physical way as opposed to it carrying on and actually maybe restricting you in a mental way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you
We know
can deal with the physical stuff. You know that, and I know you understand the mental stuff really well, but wasn't it interesting that it was a different perspective for you?
Yeah.
And it created you to take that step back.
Yeah.
At a time when mentally you could spot the creep of anxiety.
Yeah.
And turn that around.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've all got blind spots. We can, I'm blessed to have so many tools and strategies and knowledge and wisdom and lived experience to help, firstly myself out of places, but also then others.
Yeah.
But sometimes, we are trying to be better and do better, and it comes from the heart. It comes from wanting to serve more. It comes to want to be spending more time with your family, being the best we can be, whatever that means to us. And sometimes we just push a little bit too hard, and we don't quite realize what's happening, and it needs something to jolt us.
Yeah.
And this is the meaning that I give to this. And there were some beautiful life lessons that then happened through all the physio work that I did, and we'll come on to those. But I guess the point to make here is, some people would listen to this and go, well, that's a bunch of nonsense, Martin. The universe didn't do that. There's no universal lesson there, Martin. You just got a few minutes, you put a few things together, you've put together a story. Yeah, whatever, but it's not true, Martin. Here's the thing about meaning, bringing meaning to our experiences. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
No.
It don't matter. It's
No.
your story. It's your belief.
Yeah.
And I learned this from Trent Shelton. He says about, you've got a vision, you've got a purpose, or you've got a meaning. There's something that you're born to do in this moment, or there's a lived experience you've got and you're going to bring meaning to it. These are your glasses. If you give them to somebody else, they'll go, what the heck? I can't see anything out of those.
Yeah.
Because it's not meaning, it's not their purpose, it's not their vision. It's
No.
yours. So you can't expect somebody else to understand it. You've got to bring meaning to it. And if you do that in a positive way, it doesn't matter.
No.
It's going to serve you. It's going to move you forward, rather than a lot of things that happen, especially when it's more the stuff that's unexpected, and you could say that it was a negative thing, like
Yeah.
a car crash or a mental illness or a physical illness, or something happens. The automatic response is for it to be negative,
Yeah.
but we've got to find a meaning to stop that holding us back. Because I think I don't think I know, I've done it in the past, and I know a lot of people where those past experiences, those recent experiences, are literally like the millstone around their neck. That it's holding them back from seeing a brighter future. And what they're capable of and what's possible. And they keep referring back to those things as the things that define them. And they become their identity, and it becomes, well, because this happened, I can't do this, I shouldn't do that, I couldn't do that. And that kind of stuff breaks my heart, because I spent 20 years kind of in that world, and we know it's not true. And one of the simplest ways that I've discovered, is just go, well, what meaning can we bring to something?
Joe has just said, yes, the meaning you bring to your experience can assist others to entertain their perspectives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. And again, this is both Jill and our journey, where we use our life experience to help others. So, and there's no ego involved in that.
No.
We've got to the point where it's a case of, and for me personally, I think if I know something, if I've been through something, I've got some lived experience of something that could help somebody else, because they're where I used to be, and I kind of know that actually this might be a little unpleasant, or if they were to do this, this is going to make it worse, whereas this might make it better. If I have some knowledge around that, I believe I've got an ethical and moral obligation to share it. It's just my belief. Again, other people can believe whatever they want. For me, I need to share that, not because of me, but because I don't want anybody else to suffer things that I've suffered. And if people are going through things that I've been through, and there's some little perspective I can give, some little different life lesson, or different way of looking at it that can help them get through it easier, quicker, whatever that might be, then I just feel it's my duty to do that. And that's kind of why I'm here now. You invited me, we talked about meaning and life lessons, and it's just so passionate for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this for me. I've
been through this so from the heart.
Yeah, it is.
It's completely from the heart. Yeah.
So yeah, when we talk about meaning, it's not about some big, massive life, the meaning of life purpose. And I'll talk about how I was chasing that for a while. It is about the meaning in our experiences and the lessons we can learn from that. But we do that by asking different questions. We just look, however you want to do it. I just look up and ask the universe, go, okay, bit dramatic. What now? Now what are you trying to teach me? What's the lesson here? And sometimes it comes really quick, and sometimes it comes over a period of time. Sometimes we have to be patient for the lesson, but we still keep asking the question. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So that's kind of a summary of that little section of talk there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about anybody else. It's what you believe. Most of us believe negative stories, and we then live negative parts of our lives. So if we're able to believe negative stories, which very often aren't even true, then we can sure as heck believe positive stories that are going to move us forward, whether anybody else believes they're true or not, because it doesn't matter what we tell our brain, we believe, therefore make it more positive, right? So that's kind of that. There were some interesting things that happened in physio then, physically, because I've never had physio before. We were doing all manner of things. Physio massage, I tell you what, if you haven't had that, that's very different to a nice relaxing like massage on a Bali beach. Getting in there, and if you're already in pain, and they're, it's very painful. And me up to electricity machines, like zapping electricity through me, which felt like it was drilling holes in me and then yanking my muscles out of my body. Just bizarre, but apparently it's helpful. So there was all manner of things, and Cirque du Soleil moves and clicking spines, and there were some great lessons that then came out of all of that experience, and I'm still doing that now. And I did a series of videos, again, not because I'm going, hey, look at me, I've had an accident. It's like, man, you might want to, if you're going through this, you might want to look at it like this. And here's what I've learned. Because literally after every physio session, I'd sit in the car afterwards, do just a fraction of a reflection and go, oh, that's interesting. That's what I've learned today. And what happened was it was miraculous, really, because what felt like a bunch of random life lessons actually became, this is like a plan. It's like an action plan. If you want to improve something, overcome something, achieve something, change something, it's like these lessons are actually your action plan. I'm like, well, that's, again, I'll take that. It made sense of life lessons. And what happened, I'll tell you what they were. So pain is real, suffering is a choice. I refuse to suffer. Therefore, I've got to make some new choices. So I need to do something new, because I need to physically heal. I need to mentally heal. So I've got to do some new things.
Yeah.
And those new things, when we do new things, they might be a little uncomfortable, maybe even painful. Again, this is a very physical thing happening to me. It was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. New things, I've never had this before. God, that's uncomfortable, that's painful, but isn't that true in life?
Yeah.
You want to do something in business, or you want to have that difficult conversation, or you want to reach out to that person you've been admiring for a little while, or whatever it might be. You want to work on your fitness. The first time you do it, the first action you take is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And a lot of people, they shy away from it.
And do you notice when something is new as well, there's a bit of tension in the body?
Yeah.
And
there wasn't mine.
Yeah.
But there is.
When there's tension, you feel everything differently.
Yeah.
When
It kind of heightens it, doesn't it? Yeah. It heightens the anxiety, the fear. And a lot of people then pull back. They go, well, actually, that made me feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm okay. Actually, I'm okay. And even if things aren't really okay, they'll deal with whatever situation they're in. They'll stay there because they think that taking the action or doing the thing is more uncomfortable or is going to cause more fear than staying. So they then stay back. So it was an interesting one where it's like, right, okay, I'm going to choose to do something new, which means I need to reach out to somebody new. I've not done that before, so I needed to reach out to somebody new, needed to do some new things. And in order to do all of that, it was such a profound moment when I sat in the car and found this one out. Like, I have to trust and have faith in myself, in other people, and in the process.
Yeah.
So there I am with like my physio as the example. I have to, even though he's putting me through pain and being uncomfortable, I have to have the faith and the trust that it's for my benefit, and that as a result of this, I'm going to I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be fitter and stronger quicker than if I didn't do this. So, but I have to have such faith and trust in that person, but also trust and faith in myself that I'm going to see it through.
Yeah.
And then trust and faith in the process that they're going through, even though I have no clue about it. I have to have faith that it's going to work. And I think that's something that we can all learn from, that sometimes we don't reach out to people because maybe our situation in the past, people have, not been great to us. And so then we don't really trust others and we find it difficult to reach out. And I get it. I totally get it. I've been there.
Mm.
But if we lead with trust and faith, sometimes we get really surprised. And
Yeah.
I still believe there are more good people in this world than there are people trying to do us over.
Yeah, I do too.
And
I think step forward in trust and expect the best.
yeah. Some people say you've got to earn trust, and some people say lead with trust. I mean, it's up to whoever, whatever you want to do. I tend to lead with trust. If it's broken, right, we have a different conversation.
Yeah.
But if you lead with trust, then you're leading with positive energy rather than negative. And because otherwise you're just bracing for somebody to do you over.
Yeah.
You're not enjoying the journey. You're always on edge and it seems to be going all right, but I'm just waiting. And then it doesn't happen. And you realize, several years have gone by and you've not enjoyed those years when actually you could have, because there was nothing to be afraid of in the first place.
Yeah.
With all this stuff, I don't say it's easy, but it's simple mechanics of how we look at things. So
I got some comments here, a few, Mark. DJ said what she's discovering at 65 years old, no matter how many times in her life she's become distracted by other life events, the passion in her soul to continues to call to her. Sometimes though, sometimes through trauma, sometimes less dramatically, and all those times have to do with helping others through.
Yeah.
And then Joe said, my lessons from breaking her back.
Ooh.
Little steps are progress. Patience is better than frustration.
Yes.
We can thank pain for helping us. The range of pain management techniques, and she's had the electric zapper too.
Spirits.
How pain affects people's quality of life.
Yes.
And DJ said sometimes psychological pain and spiritual pain can be as debilitating as physical pain.
Yeah.
And Joe said her physio said that you will have to go through the pain barrier before you can really heal.
Yeah.
And Jenny is with us as well. So
Jenny, wonderful Jenny. Well, those, I'm trying to remember now.
I know that was
I've still got concussion, so my memory is shot. So here we go. So there were some great things in there about pain. So again, that was I'm glad it hasn't it's not just me. I don't just make this stuff up.
No.
It's like other people go, yeah, pain, we've got to break through that pain, and sometimes we've got to be uncomfortable and have that pain to move forward. And we do have to have patience, and when you've got something physical, it's so obvious. I think we were talking about that physical and mental, and there were some good comments in there about that. This really did bring to me that whole discussion about how when somebody is physically injured, it's so much easier to support or have the empathy or the sympathy or all that. And then when it comes to the mental health, it's not, because it's not obvious, it passes some people by and they don't understand it. Now, I know the conversation is far better nowadays, but it's still a conversation. And this really was that kind of physically became really obvious, but because of the questions I was asking and how I was looking at it, it was like, this reflects mentally too.
Mm.
And it's the same thing. And, there's a couple of extra life lessons in terms of that action plan. But I'm going to interrupt it because you guys have got me thinking. And I'm going to, can you hear the cogs go around?
Thank you.
I'm going to share with you something I haven't shared with anybody else. I recorded a video about this a few weeks ago in my recovery, but I didn't release it. I am going to release it, but I felt uncomfortable doing it at the time. And it was to do with the mental side of the accident. I've done lots of diary entries and these videos about the physio, and it's been a fun ride because you're always doing something, but then the lessons come out. But what I haven't talked about is, in my project rebuild, as I call it, is the mental and emotional side. Because what happened was, yeah, I had concussion. So all of a sudden, you know, the headaches and not being able to remember stuff, and really scary. And I saw the doctors the other day, and apparently that's going to go on for possibly up to 6 months. So it's like, okay, at least I know that and I can deal with that.
Yeah.
But what actually heightened was my anxiety. And if you don't know my story, and I think there are some people here that don't know my story, my story was 20 years in the corporate world where I experienced every facet of stress. So low-level stress to high stress to depression to generalized anxiety disorder, which was the thing that really tipped me over the edge, insomnia, liver disease, burnout, self-harm, and then deciding to take my life. So that's my backstory. And I've had to work so hard to overcome the anxiety. So when this came back in spades after the accident, and I'm talking about full-on body shakes, and yeah, the headaches, the feeling sick, the chest pains, not wanting to go out, not wanting to interact with people, not wanting to see people, really retreating. And again, I haven't spoken to anybody about this. Here's your world exclusive. Jill, I haven't talked about this, but I was in a really, really bad state.
Yeah.
And given my history, it really, really concerned me. Because I know what happened. I know all the warning signs, and I know where it goes if we don't get it under control. But here's the beautiful, so when we're talking about all that, the physical and the mental, yeah. And this last 8 weeks has been a trial on both fronts. And the interesting thing is, it's the same perspective. Right, okay, that's real. The pain of this anxiety is real. And anyone who's had, you know, high anxiety, it's disabling.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm choosing not to suffer. I let it go on way too long last time in my 20-year career, and I decided to end it all. So I wasn't going to let this slide. I was going to take action very quickly. So choosing not to suffer. I might have to go and do something new. I might have to be a bit uncomfortable having a conversation with my doctor and admitting that this is where I'm at. And the beautiful thing is I'm able to speak to the same doctor that helped me through all my illnesses before. Right. So she completely understands me and gets me, and she's a wonderful woman. But it's still a difficult conversation to have, to admit. And then as a coach that helps other people with anxiety and stress, and for me to be in the state, you can imagine me feeling like a fraud and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't take away from everything that I'm capable of. No. It's just you've just had a really traumatic experience. Yeah. Your body and mind are reacting. And in some ways, it's perfectly natural. Yeah. What you need to do is do something about it quickly, have that trust, have that faith in other people, and do whatever is required. You might have to do some new stuff. And, we got on some meds and did some other stuff to get me in a good place. So, and I'm really pleased that, touch wood, 8 weeks later, it's still there and we're still managing it, but it's nowhere near where it was. Yeah. But it's the same process. It's the same thing, physical and mental. I'm not going to let this go on. I need some help. I need to do some new stuff. I need to trust and put my trust and faith in somebody else to help me through both of these things. And as a result, and I think it was kind of hinted on in those comments about then the range of tools you have. This is how I describe it. I think this was one of the comments. It's the range of things that you have. I think it was about managing the pain. As a result of this, I then have a new set of tools to help me. So physically, there's all kinds of exercises and stuff that I can do to help that I didn't know about before. The mental health side of things, I know most of that. There was a couple of things that you were doing, but you did have to try some new things, but they then become additions to your toolbox.
Yeah.
And I think this was a really important lesson, because for 20 years, and I see it in like the managing directors and the business owners that I help now, when they come to me and they're completely frazzled and they're completely overwhelmed, they're stressed and like exhausted, they only have one way of operating. They only have one tool in their toolbox, and that is to work harder and longer.
Yeah.
And working harder and longer will get you so far, then you'll fall over.
Yeah.
You need other tools in your toolbox about how you go about life, how you go about business, work, time, relationships. And it's the same here with that mental side, that physical side with the accident, looking at it going, I need some new tools in my toolbox. I don't know them, so I need to go and get them from somebody else and them to help me with this. And then all of a sudden, we're making progress. And as it was pointed out, sometimes you got to be patient with progress. And especially when I say especially, but it's the same, mental or physical. I think physical, it really brings it home, because you're just not able to do certain things that you really did take for granted, like walking 10 yards.
Yeah.
When you don't do that, you then have a different perspective on life. You then go, oh, and that patience it takes. But with every little step forward, and I think this was part of that message, with every little bit that you do, with a new tool that you use, with a little bit more recovery, a little bit more support from somebody, you're gently and slowly making all this progress. And that's what I've done over these last 8 weeks. And it's been miraculous, really, as in terms of where I'm at now. I mean, I still can't do all the things that I want to do. I've just got to build up my strength, and I've got to get this shoulder sorted. But man, it's been incredible. So sometimes, like with the mental health side, when things have really hit you, it does take longer. You have to have the patience. But you can also look at this to go, when you follow the right life lessons, the action plan, you can make progress, good progress, in quite short amount of time. And even if that means you couldn't walk at all, to I can walk 10 yards, that to you is like such an achievement.
Yeah.
So, and it's been great
huge.
and recognizing that, isn't it? Rather than just realizing it and going, oh yeah, whatever, but I still can't do this. It's not about what you still can't do. No. It's about what you now can do, whereas you couldn't.
Don't you think that sometimes the focus is on what you still can't do, rather than celebrating what, the way you've come?
Yeah, it is. We see this all the time, right? There's well, I want more money, or I want my business to be more successful, or I want to help more people, or I want to go on more holidays, or I want that car, or I want this, I want that, or they see other people that have got this stuff and they go, I haven't got that, or I haven't made it yet, or I haven't got it. Focusing on all the stuff they haven't got yet. It's not to say
on what they do.
Stuff. And if you want material stuff, I'm not here to tell you not to. If you've earned it and you've earned the right to get material stuff, go do it. That's what brings you. Go for it.
Yeah.
When we bemoan the stuff we haven't got, we lack the gratitude for what we have.
Yeah.
And at this level, air in my lungs, blood in my veins, I will take that, because I can make a choice. I can make a decision. I can go and speak to some people. I can help people. I can be better, do better. And I will take that as my baseline. And then I'll build up the gratitude from there. So you're right, when we focus on the stuff, and it's really easy in this world, if we're overwhelmed by social media, there's a lot of positive social media, and we bring that positivity, but there's also a lot of negative stuff and hate stuff, and people just stirring up trouble and stirring up fictional stories and conspiracies just to put fear into people. And then you watch the news and there's no good news. And all this stuff, when we absorb all of that, we have a very negative view of the world. And we feel kind of powerless, and we feel like, oh God, it's just such a burden. It's like the world's closing in on you.
It's the opposite, isn't it? I mean, we are so powerful. And my mother, I can always remember my mother said to me when I was in my early teens, and I must have been saying, oh, one of my friends had something that I probably wished I had. And she said to me, if you spend all your time thinking about what everybody else has got, you won't enjoy what you've got.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
see that.
It's a life lesson,
Yeah,
right? There's a perspective. And I think when we call these things meaning and life lessons, it is about how you look at things.
yeah,
Because we can all have the same experience in front of us, but some of us are going to go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what we can learn from that. Or, oh man, that's amazing. I'd like to understand that more. And some are going to be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that, or what nonsense that is. Or, but the quality of your life, depending on your response to the world, it's massive. If
yeah,
you absorb all the negativity, you can have a negative quality of life.
yeah.
You know, I'm not saying just be happy and clappy and
No,
overly optimistic about everything.
it's not that toxic positivity.
No,
The
no,
it's the grateful I woke up this morning. You know,
yeah,
grateful I've got a roof over my head.
yeah,
It's you know, I enjoy the things I've got.
yeah. And
I'm
that doesn't mean that there's stuff that kind of doesn't quite
it,
work out, right?
yeah, and it doesn't
And
mean that
somebody
you
might be ill or something happens to us, and it
yeah,
doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen.
no,
It just means we're going to look at it differently, and we're still going
yeah.
to be grateful.
It's the perspective you put on it. I got some more comments for you here, Martin.
Keep them coming.
Carol is with us as well. Joe said, I think trauma comes in waves after a big accident. And this is why we need to check in on people who've been through something major, even months after the incident.
Yeah.
And that's true. And then DJ said, I think that as humans, we have an instinct to fix problems, to fix people who seem broken physically, mentally, spiritually. Sometimes I think our real purpose is not to fix, but to allow people to talk through their pains, their injuries, their wounds. And once they can talk through it, they can find a way to continue to find ways for not to continue to re-traumatize them. And yet nobody is broken, are they? Nobody needs fixing. That's the important thing.
To the words right in there. Yeah.
And
And for 20 years, I thought I was broken. I
yeah,
thought I wasn't good enough. I thought it was me. I thought, everybody else had their stuff together and it was just me. And I
no,
felt broken. I felt like I needed to be fixed. And then when I thought I couldn't be fixed, well, I had a very different thought process.
yeah,
So, but it's not. You're in an environment, you have life experiences, stuff happens, and it's how we are able to deal with those and the people we surround ourselves with that can support us. And that's been a big part of my life and how we look at things.
yeah,
So holding that space for somebody, which is what you do, is what many of us do, hold the space for somebody just to work things through, to talk it through. And sometimes you don't have to say anything, just be a listening ear. It can mean it can mean everything, and I've been there and I know that. And that's why I'm very quick in terms of like what the examples I gave with the car accident. I'm now very quick to take action.
yeah,
I'm very quick to go and speak to somebody that I know that could help me. And even if that means they're just sat there and I'm just talking to them and I can just get it out, that helps. That's the world. It's kind of not being afraid to take that kind of action and get that sort of support. Because it can change things very quickly.
yeah,
Checking in on people, that was the other thing. I pride myself for remembering that. Yeah, checking in on people, and you're right. I mean, this is early days, so like physically, I'm far better, great, but I still feel it. So it's like, well, how long is that going to be? Mentally, I'm much better than I was, but I'm still very conscious of it. I'm still having regular checkups,
yeah,
and it does come into your mind. You can't go through a traumatic thing and it just like not be there. So sometimes you do catch yourself reliving things,
yeah,
and you can have depending on kind of your state at the time, you can have a different reaction to it, a
oh
different
yeah,
emotional reaction to it. So I think it's really, really important. People have gone through anything,
yeah,
to keep checking in on them, not because you're badgering them, but
no,
because you care and that you just want to make sure that they're there. And I have some amazing friends, and and I had a conversation with them recently, because they always know if something's not quite right, because I sort of back away and I'm not so active in the groups and stuff.
Mm.
And they reach out to me, and sometimes I respond and sometimes I don't. Because again, when you're in a certain space, you don't,
Yeah.
we're all human, right? We're all human.
Yeah.
But what I was able to say to them is how it makes me feel that somebody reaches out and just says, hope you're okay, thinking of you, everything okay. Just that. They're not expecting an answer. They're not expecting a response. They just want you to know that they're thinking of you. And for me, through all my experience, that is priceless.
Yeah.
When people stop doing that, it's difficult. So when we say about surrounding yourself with people that can really champion you, who care about you and are going to support you through no matter what, it's like that, because we need that.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it?
It is. My goodness.
I got a comment here from DJ. She says her daughter has a rare disease, and so far, no view of a future without the symptoms of pain, etc., that she has. She started living with DJ about a year ago, and we've spent many hours focusing on the positive. She began a YouTube podcast this year, and she's had such good feelings from it. And she's noticed that her complaining days of pain and suffering are much fewer. And she's embracing those things that she can do and enjoys. And that's important. And I know you'll like this. Joe has said she's so glad you survived this accident, Martin, and your light and honesty continues.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
And she said she was in a minibus crash. I read that wrong then. It's like a minibus crash. And for months after, her first instinct when getting into a vehicle was, is this about to roll? How am I going to get out? And we don't.
I still have the feeling. So when I get in the car, whether I'm a passenger or I'm driving, and we're approaching a junction and we slow down. So when the brakes are being applied, I'm literally braced and I feel it in my stomach as if I'm going to get hit from behind. So I still have that. So again, these are the sorts of things that need to work through, and it will work itself out. But you're absolutely right. When you've had something like that, when the same situation happens, your body just has that muscle memory, and it just goes, look. And it's something I'm not used to. But it will work through.
Yeah, it does take time.
Yeah.
I can remember once when I lived in Cardiff, and I gone to the shop and I walked a different way. I was going to Roath Park, and it is a long straight road, and it runs parallel to Ninian Road. And this car came, and I had a friend walking with me, was heading straight towards us at quite high speed, with a bunch of young guys sat in the front and kids in the back, not little kids, youngsters. And I looked at it and my instincts kicked in, and I just jumped over a wall. And luckily, the friend who was walking with me followed, and he lost control of the car, mounted the pavement, and smashed into the wall.
Wow.
So if we hadn't jumped over the wall, we would have been... Yeah. And for a long time after that, if a car was coming towards me, on, and I'd be on the pavement, and a car was just driving normally, but you know, looked like I would have that feeling of tension,
Yeah.
and where can I go?
Where can you go? Yeah. Yeah. And as a, you know, as 'cause you used to teach people the driving, because you're like, I would say, an advanced driver, part of that is always looking for the out. So if something is to happen, where can I go? And sometimes you can't go anywhere, but it's kind of, what could I do? So you're always aware of things. But when you've had an experience like that, like we've had, and viewers have had, it does stay with you. But it does make me think that this also happens. It doesn't have to be something as dramatic as all of that.
No.
Like you can get a certain sensation when you have a certain conversation with a certain person. So if you've got somebody you don't quite get on with at work, whenever you have a conversation, it makes you feel a certain way. Or sometimes it's the room, or it's a certain building, or it can be so many different things where you've had, something's happened, and you've got an emotional reaction to that, but it then becomes your sort of default. And what we're talking about is sometimes these things can ease over time. And sometimes we just need to work through them with somebody to reframe it, to look at it slightly differently.
And
so
disrupt that pattern, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like a belief. It's just a habit you've got, but it's a physical and mental habit that causes this emotional reaction. So we have these, again, it's beautiful to be able to, we're using dramatic examples, but these are things that happen literally in day-to-day life. And if we're more aware of them, we've got more control, and we can do things about them, and we can move around our life with a little bit more joy. I
tell you what, a really undramatic thing that happened to me not long after I passed my test, and it was Gabalfa roundabout in Cardiff, which is a big roundabout and busy. It was even then busy, and I was looking for a gap to go, and I saw the gap, and I moved forward, and the car in front hadn't gone. And literally my bumper kissed his bumper, and there was no drama. And, you know, there was no need even for insurance. Nothing happened. There wasn't a mark anywhere. But I learned when I became a driving instructor that is one of the most common causes of accidents on roundabouts. Looking for the gap, going, and you see it, and the car in front hasn't gone. And I tell you the lesson I took from that, Martin, because I was thinking about this week, you know, I thought, what were my lessons from teaching people? And I mean, there's been many, but that came to mind. And I thought, we're always told to keep our eyes fixed on our goals, aren't we? On what we want. But if our goal is to go there, and we're not looking around us, we miss the gaps that allow us to go for our goal. But if our focus is all around for the gaps that allow us to go, and we're not looking forward, we don't see what's in the way of us reaching our goal either.
I love it, because I'm all about, you know, getting clear on where you want to go. It's like a sat nav, right? You don't go anywhere unless you put a destination. So we know where we are, where's the destination, and then we'll figure out the route. But I think a lot of people get it when we're talking about goal planning and all that kind of stuff now. But it's like, all right, okay, I want to go there, I want to achieve this, or whatever it might be. And you're right, we can be so fixed on that, and then we can come up with a plan that's so rigid that you don't see the opportunities along the way, you don't have the joy along the way, you don't enjoy the journey. It's really set. And then when something comes along that knocks you off of that rigid plan, it's like a complete disaster. And you think like the whole thing's like gone to pot. be clear on where you want to go, just like in a sat nav, but the plan, the route you're going to take to get there can meander, it can go all over the place. As long as you're still moving forward, then that's good. Have a flexible plan. You want to get there as quickly as possible, but there is joy in the journey, and there are opportunities that you'll never see if you've got such a rigid plan. I mean, I do like planning, and I do like knowing where I'm going, but I learned a bit like you. I learned a while ago now that actually that plan needs to be really flexible, because otherwise, when it doesn't, I get really anxious. I like certainty. But if something then comes along and I'm like really certain on this thing, and then something comes like this, it can really throw me off. So I've got to like kind of be a little bit, right, okay, I'm going to ease off a little bit, and I'm okay with a bit of uncertainty. I know I can deal with it, you know, but at least I know where I'm going. So again, great life lessons. This is the whole thing. There's no mega science to this. There's no, you're not trying to make this overly complicated. It is literally just looking at what's happened to you and going, what can I learn from that? You know, not why has it happened or bemoaning the fact it's happened. It's like, well, what can I learn from it? How can I move forward a bit more positively? And I love the example in the comments, I didn't pick up on it, about the YouTube, starting up the YouTube channel and then basically serving others, and then finding joy and finding that actually, you know, complaining about that situation or feeling negative about the situation kind of eased off because they were involved in more joyous things and serving. And it is one of the things we touched on it before, about sharing what we're going through, sharing, not to go look at me, woe is me, and for the likes and the attention. It's, here's what I've learned from my experience. Here's I'm going through some tough times now, or I've been through some tough times, and here's what I'm learning. Because somebody might just be one step behind you, and they might just need to know what you know, and you're going to help them. And something that I found during these 8 weeks, you know, I'm all about service and adding value and helping people. During these 8 weeks, so mentally and physically, I was not in a good place for a good number of those weeks. What really brought me joy, what really brought me focus, was serving others. So I didn't miss a client call. So all my one-to-one clients I have calls with every week, I didn't miss one of those. And it wasn't because I'm being a martyr and like, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm just working harder and longer and I'm not listening to my body, because I took massive amounts of time away elsewhere. But my clients were going through really tough times in their lives. And I was able, despite everything else, I was able to show up, add huge value, be that listening ear for them, give them some perspective, help them along their way, and see them grow and move and progress and improve and all the stuff that they needed to do over this time. Whilst behind the scenes, I'm like, oh, but those moments of service gave me absolute purpose and focus, and were something that just, like I said, brought me joy through all the literal physical and mental pain I was going through. So that example that was given, it was a brilliant example, because it's a brilliant example of, yeah, you've got this thing going on, but when you start sharing, when you start doing it and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's as good as therapy. It helps you, it gives you some focus, it gives you a purpose, it helps you remember that you can make a difference. And what you're going through, you can make a difference to somebody else.
Brings in all the feel-good chemicals in our body, doesn't it? Which is healing. Yeah,
it is. So I love that example. So for that, and again, reminds me of my journey as well.
And DJ has said, not the recurrence of an accident memory, but a thing told to her when she was a teen by a person reading tea leaves. She said in her middle-aged years, she would have an accident that would nearly kill her, but would survive and then do wonderful things. So she said once she turned 35, 40, she started having visions of herself being involved with a car crash and got really nervous driving. But she said, I don't know when that stopped, perhaps close to age 60. And you know, I think that's such a dangerous thing to say to somebody, you're gonna have this accident and you'll nearly die or anything like that, because things are changing constantly.
Yeah.
So we can't really read a future.
No.
Nobody can really read a future, not for anyone, because there's other things external to each person that constantly change what's going to happen in that person's life.
Yeah.
And do you know, I used to, somebody I was teaching to drive, she told me that she dreamt that on this one certain road she was going to die.
Wow.
Right? And it was a road we had to go on sometimes as part of the driving. And every time we went on there, I used to say, please not today. Don't this let be the day that she's got to have a crash and die, not with me in the car.
I thought that was going to go another way, but that was brilliant. That's a brilliant way
It
to
was
write home.
part, and it was part of a test area,
Yeah.
and we had to go on it. And just every time I used to think, not today, please.
Yeah. It's what we're told or what we're exposed to, what we choose to even believe ourselves or make up ourselves,
Yeah,
be it a dream or anything else. It can be a great power for good, and it can also, it's exactly what I was saying about, you either look at things in a positive way, what can I learn from this, how can I move forward, or you're looking at it negatively. Things like this, when we then focus on it, of course it's going to have, if somebody tells you, oh, you're going to die, well, we're all going to die sometime, but I'm going to die in a car crash. Like, geez, again, how much time do you then spend, bless, who was it again? It was
DJ, yeah.
I mean, I feel for you, because the amount of years that would have passed to you thinking about that and being anxious about that when nothing happened, right?
And the anxiety could create it.
Yeah. Words are powerful, and
Yeah.
we need to be careful what we say to other people. And sorry about that experience, but hey, you're going strong and you're doing good. So hey, they shouldn't have said that to you in the first place.
No.
Be very, very careful with our words, because they stick. And it is what we were just discussing. Really, it reminds me again of that the previous journey to the road accident. And I don't want to use up too much more time. So it is about bringing meaning to those big things and those experiences. So when that 20 years, I've already said about the 20 years in corporate and all the mental health, there was a moment in therapy where we were in an art room. So this was after I decided to end it all. I was in therapy, and I literally stood up and I suddenly realized who I was again. I kind of like rekindled the Martin from 20 years ago, and I realized why I was there and what I could do. I didn't have the how, but all I knew was I'd been through all of this for a reason, that the universe had put me through all these trials and tribulations. They put people in my life that could help me and support me. And as a result, I could then share my story and help others, people with the life lessons. That is literally, it was a moment of an epiphany moment that came to me in therapy. And ever since, that's how I've been then living my life and sharing from that. And what this accident brought up for me is that one of the things it brought up with me is a lot of what I've done is reflecting and bringing the life lessons from that chunk of time that I had, the 20 years, and then all the recovery from the mental illness and all that kind of stuff. But I rarely talked about the here and now. So I just had an accident, and it just gave me that opportunity to talk about the here and now and be very vulnerable about where I am now, because I ain't got everything sorted, and I'm not that sort of person. It's not like everything's perfect in my life.
Nobody has them.
But all of a sudden, again, this universal lesson, it was like a lot of what you do is retrospect marketing, whereas maybe some of what you need to share is in the moment, and that can be as powerful, if not even more powerful, because it shows what's going on at the moment. But that was there were 3 lessons that came out of my 20 years. Again, it's life lessons, but they stuck with me. They happened really quickly after things started to fall back into place. And the one thing, we've talked about this, that you are good enough, right? No
Yeah.
matter what. I just spent 20 years feeling like I wasn't good enough. I didn't fit. But I took it personally. You are good enough. No matter what anybody else says, doesn't matter what situation you're in, you're definitely good enough. You know, you can, as long as you've got blood in your veins, air in your lungs, we can make decisions, we can be better, do better. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the first lesson, good enough. The second lesson was that stress is not the tax that that we have to pay for the privilege of living and working in the 21st century.
No.
Right? Stress is almost like a badge of honor. It's like it's just normalized, and stress kills. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. Stress kills, right? And you let it go, and it develops into all manner of other things, which is kind of what my journey was. So it's like that's a lesson, and I wanted to share that lesson. And then the last one was that we always have a choice. And it has some parts to this. We always have a choice of, there's always a conversation that we haven't had. So no matter what the situation is, and we can get into some pretty bad situations at times, and we can have accidents, and we can have all manner of traumas and illnesses, and there's always a conversation you haven't had. And this was brought to me, and you know, if it makes you uncomfortable, then just shout. That moment when I decided to end it all, that wasn't a frivolous kind of decision.
No.
This was after years and years of pain and suffering, and after lots of talking to doctors, lots of therapy, lots of training, lots of medication. And it got to a point where I could no longer physically, emotionally, financially support my family. And I felt like I'd tried everything. And so I felt like I'd had every conversation. There was no other medication I could take. And I just felt worse than ever. And I just felt like I was a burden to my family. I felt I was a burden to myself. I just couldn't. And that's the decision. And it was made out of love, that decision. Misconception about those kinds of decisions. But here's the thing. There's always a conversation that you haven't had. I thought I'd had all the conversations.
Yeah.
One conversation saved my life, and it was with my wife. And I've got an article that talks about my experience called Behind the Sunglasses and the Smile.
Yeah.
And she's got an article that talks about it from her point of view, which is the little big conversation. And you got to bear in mind that my dear wife, and I think she's in the other room, she's going to hear this, she's going to be blushing. She's not just my wife.
No.
This is my best friend. This is my lover. This is somebody I've known since nursery, when we were 18 months old, and I was going around the nursery playground on my red plastic tractor, looking really cool. I got this vision in my head, like I'm wearing a baby suit, right, with the sunglasses on. You're the girl I'm going to marry. I'm trying to tease her about that. But we met then, and then went to infant school, we went to secondary school, we went to university. She's been in my life literally for my whole life. So she's my soulmate. She's my guardian angel. She saved my life on 3 occasions. This is that depth of relationship. To tell that person, she asked me what was going on because she could see that something had changed. And I don't know, I say it's the most courageous conversation I've ever had, but I wasn't thinking, all right, I'm going to have a courageous conversation. It just came out, and I just told her where I'd got to and what was going to happen. And that's the kind of open relationship we've got. Very honest. And she was so calm and so loving and serene. And the outcome from that was a mantra that we've lived by, which is together we can get through anything. Together we'll get through anything. The funny thing about this is, let's lighten it a little bit. A few years later, she told me what she was actually thinking in that moment, which is a big moment.
Yeah.
She was relieved. When she told me this, my face must have been a picture. She was relieved that I said I was going to end it all. I'm thinking, what the hell? What are you talking about? She was relieved because she thought the worst case scenario was that I didn't love her and that I wanted a divorce.
Wow.
That is a depth of relationship.
Yeah.
Anything, this other thing that I just threw at her, oh, we can deal with that. Together we can get through anything. When I say you've always got a choice, there's always a conversation you haven't had. And I'm not saying it's an easy conversation. I mean it, because I've been at the moment when that conversation was needed to save my life. And I then went on to have another conversation with that beautiful doctor of mine, who I'm still in touch with, who's still helping me. And then that conversation then led to having a conversation with new people. So there's always a conversation you haven't had, and there's always somebody you haven't spoken to. I thought I had explored all avenues. I tell you what I hadn't done. I hadn't gone to a psychiatrist. And they got a different, they see things differently. And so I saw two of them, and they then diagnosed me with this generalized anxiety disorder, which we didn't know I had. And as soon as that clicked into place and I was on antipsychotics for that, within literally 24 to 48 hours, my mind was clear. The 27 versions of Martin that were screaming in my head for years suddenly just quietened down, and I could actually put into practice everything that I'd learned. It was like, there's always a conversation you haven't had. There's always somebody you haven't spoken to, and therefore there's always something you haven't done.
Yeah. I
hadn't had that different medication. I hadn't had that different conversation. I hadn't had that different kind of thought. But these are, I could have just gone, oh, and then this is just my life. Or I can look up and reflect on this and go, what were the lessons? What did I learn? And those are some super mega powerful lessons for anybody to kind of internalize. And if they're ever struggling, to go, no, I always have a choice. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's definitely a conversation, definitely somebody, and there's definitely something you haven't done. And that's the meaning and the lessons that I brought from that whole traumatic 20 years experience. The thing is, whilst I was in that trauma, I wasn't thinking about my life lessons, right? No. It's just a kind of a habit now. Look at the difference. I let that go on for 20 years, whereas in an accident, 8 weeks later, look at everything I've put into practice and learned. And it's like, I've learned that now.
You had no space to look at the life lessons. There was no space to even look there, was there?
No, there wasn't. No.
And
I wouldn't have heard it even if it was there.
No.
Because the voice is screaming in my head. But that is also why getting somebody involved, and I think we're more blessed now than we certainly were when I was going through that. There are more people around that understand this, that can help and hold that space and not judge and be that listening post and have that guidance. But it's difficult, and I'm not going to understate that. You know, it's not easy.
No, and getting to the right people who could look at things in a different way and diagnose properly. Yeah.
And again, I know that I'm blessed in that area, because I could go across the border and maybe the medical services aren't so good. Or I could be in a different country and the medical services aren't so good. So I know that I'm blessed, but what I've also found on my journey since all of that is the world is a very big place. And there are amazing, beautiful people all over the world that we can tap into, have conversations with, have a call with, message with, get on Zoom calls with, that can genuinely help and do know what they're talking about. And that opened up the world for me, and it's opened up so many amazing relationships. It's partly how we met. So there are people out there. You've got to find the right people, you know, but they are there. And I think if you believe they're there, you're more likely to actually reach out. You know, it's when you think nobody cares and nobody's going to understand and there's nobody immediately around you that can help, you can cut yourself off. So I just encourage you to, you know, have that bravery, have that courage. If you're listening to this.
Can I ask you about something that I found interesting, the way you phrased it?
Okay.
Is that you felt you were a burden to yourself.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say that before. I've heard people say they feel they're a burden to people externally, but I've never heard anybody say a burden to themselves. That feels really big and really a powerful statement.
Must be. I got goosebumps. Thanks, Jill. I would believe that that comes from when you have just no more faith in yourself, when you have lost all self-esteem, all confidence, you believe totally that you are completely and utterly worthless.
Mm.
That person you could have been, you have failed them. You have failed this gift of life. You have failed on every level. Therefore, you're a burden, not just to others, but even to yourself. That's a pretty low place to get to, and hence decisions. But, you know, grace of everything being, and this was the universal plan. One conversation, one little big conversation saves my life.
Yeah.
Here we are talking about this, about life lessons, about bringing meaning to the things that happen to us.
Yeah.
And the reason when we position this, I am so passionate about this. And hopefully people can see why now, because
Oh yeah.
no matter
And
what it is.
Isn't it so important to be able to talk like this?
It's what I said at the beginning, right? You hold the space to be able to have these kinds of conversations that maybe aren't had, you know, publicly in many places. But I'm, you know me, I'm just heart on the sleeve. I'm just going to say it how it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend to be anything other than I am, with all my flaws and all my story. And I'm just going to try and do the best I can. If there's something that I think might be able to help people, and it might be because they've been through something similar, it might be because it might not be similar, but it is a bit of a, and it is holding you back. It might be because of some of the life lessons we've shared and the meanings we've given things. And they go, I could look at it like that, actually. And actually, yeah, if any of that, if one thing has landed, then it's been worth it.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, so I'm sure we're going to wrap up soon, otherwise this is going to be like a 3-hour Netflix series again.
Yeah.
We started at the beginning, and I did say about very often people are looking for like the big meaning, the big life purpose, the big meaning behind life, and we chase that, and it's a question we all ask ourselves at some point, you know. And again, it's sensitive stuff, so please, you know, if you don't want to listen to it, that's okay. And this is something that I've only shared once before. Okay, once before. So, Jill, I feel this is a safe space to share this. I said I was pursuing meaning all my life, and you can see what had the profound impact that's now had on me and how I go about things. But it all started when I was little, and I'm talking about really little, single figures little, back in the 70s, you know, when we still rode dinosaurs and stuff. And I was at one of these 70s swimming pools. So we were on holiday, south of England with my folks, and I was a little one. And these 70s swimming pools, nowadays, they're like, they've got a shallow end that kind of gradual into a deep end, don't they?
Yeah.
But back in the 70s, they didn't. They had a shallow end and a deep end, and it went.
Yeah.
When they said, don't get too near the edge, they didn't mean the edge of the pool. They meant the edge where it literally goes into the deep end. And some of you may remember that and may know that. I was there. Don't get too close to the edge, Martin. I wasn't trying to be a numpty, but I think something happened. I think somebody jumped in. I think there was a big splash. I think there was somebody swam by, the water shifted, and little old Martin went into the deep end. And I said it earlier, I've died once, I've come back. I've taken my last 2 breaths, I'm living for twice. Decided to end it all, survived 2 car crashes. This first one often gets glossed over. I think people just kind of like, what do you say? And then they just concentrate on the other stuff. But on that day, I drowned. So I went to the bottom. And again, this is something I do not share. I have not shared. I have a vision in my head. And whether this was an out-of-body experience or whether this is just a vision that I've put in my head, I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care, right? Yeah. All I know, it's my truth. And I can see from up above, I'm looking down on the pool, I can see everybody around. It's a beautiful, glorious summer's UK day. They're on their sun loungers and they got their umbrellas. And there is me lying at the bottom. I see it as vividly as if it happened yesterday or 5 minutes ago. It's right in there. And my dad jumped in, scooped me off the bottom, resuscitated me, brought me back. Hero, right? Policeman, give him an award. It's probably why he got the Queen's Police Award, among many other things. He saved my life on that day. He brought me back because that was it. Ever since being conscious of that experience, I was then on this search for meaning, because it was like, I had a second chance at life. This must mean something. I must be here for a reason, right? And back then, it wasn't about sort of what I do now, to some extent. It was like, maybe I'm supposed to be there when a little old lady is crossing the road and then a car's coming and I got to push her out the way heroically, probably tapping into some TV show or something. It's like, I've got to be there to save someone's life. It's got to mean something. And so I went through this whole searching for meaning for so long. And the word I've thought about it earlier, and I thought the word that really describes it was, it haunted me for years, well into my 20s. This whole thing about, I must be here. I got a second chance. I'm on my 7th chance now, but you can see I brought meaning to it all.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, I must be here for a reason. And then over time, it's like we got married, we have family, and then it's like, well, maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's about my children. Maybe they're going to go on and do some amazing things. And I'm pretty sure they're going to go on and do some amazing things. Yeah. You kind of takes the pressure off you. But then I had all this experience in corporate. And then it became clear that I was on this whole journey. I was going through all these things, and that there was a purpose behind it. The universe had put me through all these things so that I could share them, share my life lessons, my lived experience, help other people so they don't experience these sorts of things. And here I am now, and still doing it with accidents. But I've realized it wasn't, so long I chased the one thing, the meaning behind why I was given a second chance at life, and it must be for the one moment. I realized it's about all the moments. And, you know, maybe that's the great conclusion that we come to with this. It's all the moment that we can bring meaning to, positive meaning that can help us, help others, and move forward and live the best life we can with joy, with gratitude, and take it from there. Yeah. And not chase things, not chase goals, not chase money, not chase purpose or meaning. Let's just live the best we can in this moment and take it into the next. And if stuff happens, because it does, let's just ask different questions and we'll get different answers. Yeah. That is the greatest insight of all, Martin. Thank you. You just summed up. And Carol has said she's been offered medication for anxiety and depression and refused, but maybe it's something she should try. I'm not a doctor. I can't advise anything. What I will say, my experience, for years before I reached that point where medication came into it, and medication came into it when I hit burnout. I'm not talking about exhaustion. I'm talking about when literally my body and mind shut down on me and it said, enough is enough. We can't take it anymore, Martin. We're shutting you down. I couldn't do anything. It was terrifying. No. From that moment, before that moment, anything to do with medication, because I knew people that had anxiety and worry and and depression, they were feeling low. And there was this real resistance to take medication from them. But also I had a kind of view that, well, try and do it naturally. You know, these chemicals, they kind of mess with your brain a little bit. And, you know, you're not quite sure. And they got side effects. And, you know, I was never a fan. When it got to the point where enough is enough, I couldn't operate anymore. It was like, give me anything, and I'll try anything to get better, to be better, to clear my mind. And as a result of then embracing that, I tried different things because they don't always work straight away. It helped immensely. I wouldn't be here without them, because I couldn't have managed how I was feeling naturally. I just couldn't, because I was that far gone by that point. So I found that they did have a place,
Yeah,
but what they are is they're not a fix.
yeah,
What they do is they just quieten down the brain. They give you a little bit more calm.
you've lost your sound, Martin. Martin, your sound, you've turned your sound off. You've gone silent.
Hello, hello, hello.
You,
I
you
don't know.
something happened, you muted yourself.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't touch a thing.
No.
It was probably Mark Zuckerberg trying to get off. Where did we get to? It was just that I found a place for them, but they
Yeah.
don't solve the problem. They don't fix the problem. What they
Mhm.
do is they just help calm things down, help you think clearer so that you can put into place the stuff you've probably learned through other techniques and therapies and the strategies. That's what it helped me do. And then over time, they then start losing their usefulness because you're not as reliant on them, and the side effects, outweigh the benefits.
Yeah.
So then you can start coming off of them, and I'm not on, probably I'm trying to think now, 3 years. It's possibly 2 years since I came off of antipsychotics.
Right.
So again, in terms of my journey,
Yeah.
that last part where I really was dependent on some of that medication, it was in the recent past, but I'm not anymore. I just needed a little top up recently because, but it was a short-term medication.
And
not a
that's really helpful information and really good insight there, Martin.
Yeah, I
Thank
hope so.
you.
It's always a personal decision, and I'm not here to preach anything. Just from what my experience, I was dead against them. I tried, it helped. I was then able to put other things into place which I felt I needed to, and I was able to then come off them. And it's not a thing for life or anything like that. So
No.
I'm wishing you well on your journey, and if you ever need a chat, then just let us know, because I certainly know how that feels.
And Jo has said, she's thanking us for sharing ourselves. And she said, ladies and gentlemen, and she's put in quotes, in sat-nav voice, you have reached your destination.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And I feel that we've reached our destination, Martin. I mean, is there anything, more you wanted to?
I've given you all the big life lessons and the big events from my life, how I've looked at them, asked different questions, and got different answers. It takes practice to do that. It can feel a bit weird doing that at times, but I've found that it's worth it, and it's improved the quality of my life and allowed me to deal with any setbacks, anything that happens out there in the world, or with my family, or with me. I can deal with it a heck of a lot better, a heck of a lot easier, and I'm quicker to ask for help and support, and therefore overcome whatever it is that's in front of me. So, given that I didn't do that for 20 years, I've learned my lesson, and if that can help anybody else, then job done.
Thank you. And thank you. I appreciate your time here today, and I know you'll come back again.
I'll be here. Right. I love coming here. I said this right at the start. It's like family, and I hope everyone's found value from this. I know we've gone long again. We like to do our Netflix specials, and chunk it up and check out all the valuable insights, and go and live life with joy.
Yeah.
Right? Live your best life, your most extraordinary life, and know that there are people that care, that there are people that can actually help you and support you, and be listening to you as well.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you everybody who joined us, and thank you everybody who watches on the replay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We're going to cut the live stream now and say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.